Hello, BookTube. Since it's more than likely that, let's face it, you can't get enough of me, I thought I'd make another video while the tiny amount of vestigial, weak daylight that the day has provided is still around. Although it needs natural light to amplify it. What a grim and gray and rainy day this has been. And this video is not really a book haul. Naturally, I was aware as anyone of the increased temperature of the OGBG book haul wars, and a number of voices approached me from a number of different angles, delicately suggesting that I may be a bit of an instigator. So this video is not exactly a book haul. I didn't go out and buy anything. The first thing is something that my surly houseboy went out and got. I thought that was very nice, and I am going to make the best of this thing. This is, believe it or not, a Book of the Month Club edition of War and Peace, with Gandalf the Grey on the cover. For some unknown reason, Book of the Month Club, who knows how long ago. Actually, let's find out how long ago. I vaguely remember that they did this, and they also did a matching Anna Karenina. This is from... oh, God help us. Don't tell me the Book of the Month Club doesn't have to say. Well, the cover art... I can't believe anybody put their name on it. But the cover art is from the mid-1980s, so probably this is from then as well. This is the Constance Garnett translation, which I have already in the Modern Library. That Modern Library with the old beige lunch bag paper covers. I have one of those. I've noticed with those old Modern Libraries, much as I love the look of them, that the glue of the binding is a little bit on the fragile side. It tends to age poorly, so that I'm not sure that old Modern Library would stand a reading. I should actually test it out, because if it won't stand a reading, if I open it, 300 pages into a 1,000-page novel and feel like the book is going to crack in two pieces, then I should get rid of it. I don't want any books that I can't read. This is probably a little bit more sturdy, but obviously, I'm going to need to remake this cover and the spine. I don't want to see Lev Tolstoy's face staring out at me from his book. I don't want to see that. I love the Constance Garnett translation. Her and Rosemary Edmonds, I think they get a bit of a bad rap. All that earliest, those first generations of Tolstoy translators, Constance Garnett, Rosemary Edmonds, the Mods, I think they get a bit of a bad rap for so-called Englishing Tolstoy, for smoothing out his oddness. Now, we've talked about translation on this channel many times. It's one of my favorite literary subjects to talk about, and you're all great about it too, because you all have a million stories of your own. And that is the split of a translator, right? You either render a foreign work into not only the language but the idiom of your target audience, no matter what you have to throw overboard to do that, or you render that text in all of its own indigenous weirdness and just hope that any of it makes sense in another language. And the first generation of Tolstoy translators into English definitely took the former route. And I think both routes have value. I don't see one as inherently better than the other. So I very much like the Constance Garnett translation, but I am going to have to perform. I mean, it's not just that I'm going to have to reinforce this cover. I'm obviously going to have to, because it's falling apart, but I'm going to have to remake it as well. I'm not sure that I like any of this, much less the picture. Doesn't the lettering sort of look like a university logo? Go Alpha Sig or whatever. I'm going to have to figure out what I want to do. I'm definitely replacing the picture, though. And when I thought of that, I immediately thought, well, why not make a video out of that? So when I decide what I want to do with this whole of this thing, then I will make a video just revamping this, because I'm never gonna. It's a Book of the Month Club edition of Constance Garnett's translation of War and Peace, so it doesn't have any value it doesn't have any resale value for you purists out there, and it's not anything that I'm going to give up. I have a shelf of War and Peace translations. This will just go on that shelf. So I'm not desecrating anything. I'm just having a little fun to personalize the book. But instead of doing that in private, I'll make a video out of it, just in case there are any of you who find it interesting. So that is book number one The Constance Garnett translation of War and Peace. Pretty interesting, especially since I would very much like to do a read-along of War and Peace in 2021 or in some future year. I think a lot of you might be interested in that as well, and I know Just the Booktuber I would like to help me host it. He doesn't make videos anymore, but he knows his way around Anna Karenina backwards and forwards. It might be nice. I don't think that David Murphy has ever read War and Peace. Wouldn't that be something? But we'll leave that free. But the other books that are in this non-book haul, because I don't want to inflame any aggressions, are bits of mail. We go through just a couple of pieces of mail that arrived storm-tossed on my door. What a day this has been. Oh my, what a day for a battle of wills. It has just been a battle of wills all day. My little schnauzer, Frida, just hates the rain. Hates it. I've never really had a dog that liked it. I've had a couple of beagles that would be perfectly willing to tramp outside in all weathers. And oh my, was that fun to do when we used to do that, where you just haven't, well, some of you have experienced it, I'm sure. It's an amazing feeling to be out up in high hills or in deep woods, far away from home, in the middle of a dark and rainy day, just experiencing the weather on your own, just getting soaked. It's a great feeling to do that with an all-terrain, all-weathers dog. And I've had a couple of those, but most of my dogs have not liked the rain. But nothing compared to Frida. She doesn't just not like it at all. So it's been a huge battle of wills all day that is at least a little easier nowadays because she is young and can go an enormous amount of time without going to the bathroom. And also she knows perfectly well that she can go in Hyde Cottage. I'm not going to object in the slightest. Not in the slightest. And she knows that. So I mean, there's a tiny, tiny list of things that I might object to, and she knows that list. Not that I've ever had any occasion. I've never had yet an occasion to object to anything that this dog does. So, but anyway, let's see what we have here. Okay, this is self-published. How interesting. I'm kind of amazed, considering that I love self-published books and indie titles of all kinds, and considering that I would like to join their ranks in 2021. And I've interviewed indie authors. I was the indie editor for the Historical Novel Review Online for years. Considering all of that, you'd think that I'd get more indie books. You'd think more indie authors would somehow find... I don't know how they would. I don't make it known outside this channel, but you'd think more of them would find me and send me their stuff. Because even if I don't review it, I can understand if an indie author, you're watching your money. If you're an indie author, before you start making any of it back, you're watching your money. I can understand why they might think, well, I'm not going to send a review copy to every single person who has any kind of audience. I would understand that, but in my case, on this channel, there's a lot more going on than that, right? Because I am what the term is, showcasing. I'm holding up the book to thousands of people and talking about it a bit, even before I know anything about it. Even if you don't get a review, that kind of exposure is great for an indie author. I'm surprised more of them don't do it. But that's what this is. It's by Darlene Nolan, and it has a title that will either pull you right in or suck you right out. It's called Involved with a Cad for 7 Years in the Twilight Zone. It's a tiny little thing. A true story of an ill-fated relationship marked by indifference, adversity, deceit, betrayal, and endurance. So a marriage, in other words. The author takes you into her marriage with her ex-foreign national spouse, who goes from charming, alarming, to harming. During this insidious union with nefarious intent, the American wife discovers that her marriage was one-sided and only for the purpose of securing a U.S. visa, then a green card. The Twilight Zone is a place in time where you have never been, where you will learn to overcome the obstacles of unimaginable adversity by finding your inner strength so that you can rise above the storm of controlling and manipulative individuals who seek only to do you harm. It is this very place where you find your inner voice and self-love that has resided within you all along. Okay, so that the book summary shifted from a summary of the book to a summary of the lessons that the book will teach you. Tiny little thing to pack all that in. And who is the author when she's at home? She's a New Hampshire native who lived in Europe for 6 years. She has a work history of government service and a variety of private sector jobs as an administrative assistant. And she studied English and creative writing at Southern New Hampshire University. Okay, great. Well, this is 88 pages long. It's $13, and I don't have a publication date on it, but I assume it's out already. So we shall see. I mean, it'll take me 20 minutes to read it, so I will definitely do that. The bane of indie books that I have found, I have read so many indie books. Ooh, MG, so many of them. Many indie books for pleasure. Many indie books for the historical novel review, hundreds of them. And also, I would estimate by now probably a couple of thousand indie reviews for Kirkus Reviews. I have read ever so many of these things, probably more than anybody listening to me. Certainly more than anybody that I know. And as a result, I've come to know indie books quite well, their nature as just a general species. And the bane of them is, unfortunately, financial. It's that indie authors get to the finish line of all the hard work. You're doing the formatting. This thing looks really good. You come up with a title, you come up with the the fonts and the gutters and the margins and the pagination and the index and all of that. And then maybe you've paid top dollar for a design and a cover, but you don't pay for an editor. You think, okay, it's 88 pages. I've been writing it and rewriting it for years. There won't be any mistakes that I don't know about. And that is wrong. That is wrong. And it's the biggest thing. It's the biggest weakness. It's the bane of indie publishing, at least all the indie books that I've read, is that no matter how worthwhile their subject or their message might be, you're pulled right out of them by how poorly they are executed on a syntactical level, just on a demotic, word-by-word level. That can ruin the spell of a book. So we shall see. We shall see what this is like. Since it's tiny, I'll do it right away. And then the next one is actually, I think, from a publisher. Not this is from a publisher as well, but mainstream, not indie. And then we'll be done with this non-book haul video. I stress, this is not a book haul. Okay, what have we got here? There's a note. I almost threw the note away. Don't want to do that. Oh, yes, I do. It's an invoice. Gross. All right. Well, we'll do it the old-fashioned way then. This is by Harold Schechter, and this is called Maniac. Oh, right. I talked to the publicist about this. This comes out in March of next year. And Harold Schechter, some of you, if you're true crime aficionados, you will know his name. He does this well. He does this really well. He knows exactly what he's doing. What a job it must be, though. I don't think I could stand it myself, writing about this subject even once, much less book after book. But he does. This is called Maniac. Kind of amazing that considering his career, he has never before called a book Maniac. The Bath School Disaster and the Birth of the Modern Mass Killer. See what I mean? So all that he writes about. And he does a really good job of it. So if by chance you are maybe an old school fan of Anne Rule or something like that, and you haven't read this author, then you should find his backlist and give it a try. And also put this thing on pre-order, because I don't ordinarily advise pre-order. But when an author has a particular row that he likes to hoe, and he has done it forever, and he's never put a foot wrong, you can pretty much guarantee that the next book will be as good as the last one. And the last one was quite good, quite creepy. Well, let's find out what we have here. Because people are always trying to do this. They're always trying to figure out the birth of the modern mass murderer. Most people, most experts in this kind of forensic psychology and whatnot, shy away from letting that be 1888. They shy away from naming Jack the Ripper and giving him that distinction. I myself think that it makes self-evident sense, because the modern mass murderer has many moving elements, not just the body count. And Jack the Ripper satisfies them all, and I believe invented them all, or most of them. But well, let's see here. Harold Schechter, Amazon Chart's best-selling author of Hell's Princess. Amazon Chart best-selling author. There's a title that would be nice to have before you pop your clogs and shuffle off this mortal coil, isn't it? Have to watch out for that in 2021. Be nice if I could be an Amazon Chart bestseller myself, maybe for a couple of different books. You're very nice. He unearths the nearly forgotten true crime of obsession and revenge, one of the first and worst mass murders in American history. In 1927, while the majority of the township of Bath, Michigan, was celebrating a new primary school. Oh my God! Don't tell me that's the school. Oh my God! One of the most modern in the Midwest. Andrew Kehoe had other plans. The local farmer and school board treasurer was educated, respected, and an accommodating neighbor and friend. That's what they said about Brian at Bookish. He's a disaster waiting to happen. But behind his ordinary demeanor was a narcissistic sadist, seething with rage, resentment, and paranoia. Well, that rules Brian out. He's a little tired for all of that. On May 18th, he detonated a set of rigged explosives with the sole purpose of destroying the school and everyone in it. Good Lord. 38 children and 6 adults were murdered that morning, culminating in the deadliest school massacre in U.S. history. So it worked. He rigged explosives and killed 38 children. Maniac is Harold Schechter's gripping, definitive, exhaustively researched chronicle of a town forced to comprehend unprecedented carnage and the triggering of the human time bomb whose act of apocalyptic violence would foreshadow the terrors of the current age. Good Lord. Well, you see what I mean. I don't know where Harold Schechter finds the moral fortitude to go researching these things, but you know perfectly well. What was the name of the town? Bath, Michigan. You know perfectly well he went there and poured through boxes of local records, maybe the old microfiche machine in the basement of the library that no one's used in 30 years. You know perfectly well he did that. He doesn't phone in his books. You know perfectly well that he dug into the darkest heart of this subject. God knows who's the name of the monster? Andrew Kehoe. God knows all the stuff that he learned about Andrew Kehoe that no one knew before. He will certainly have gone over any kind of court transcripts. He will certainly have seen morgue paperwork. Well, better him than you or me, but we get to benefit from his work. So this is a perfect example of something that I am looking forward to. As weird as it sounds. I know the subject matter is macabre, but I'm looking forward to it in 2021 because this is an example of something that I sometimes talk about on this channel, a known quantity. Harold Schechter writing about unearthing the history and the details and psychology of horrible crimes is a known quantity. He knows exactly what he's doing. It's like, for instance, an Otto Penzler anthology or the old Gardner Dozois science fiction anthologies, where you know that stylistic step one way or another that you may or may not disagree with, you know that the person involved, the author or the editor, knows what they're doing and is going to turn in a finished product. So that's I don't know how eager I am to read about it, but it'll be fascinating, I'm sure. And there you have it. That is a non-book book haul. So we have Maniac, a story of Bath, Michigan. Any of you near Bath, Michigan? And one of the worst school murders in American history. And then involved with a cad for 7 years in the Twilight Zone. Used her for a green card. An old story, but I'm happy to read it again. And then a little-known author named Leo Tolstoy. War and Peace, a big Book of the Month Club hardcover of War and Peace with a cover so bad, a physical design so bad, that I'm going to entirely redo it. The spine and the front cover. So we shall see what it ends up looking like. So there you go. That was a non-book haul for this dark and rainy Saturday. The day started off with thick fog, and then the fog gave way to rain, and I believe the rain is going to give way to colder temperatures and maybe snow all week long. There are spotty forecasts of snow almost every day next week. But now that I'm done talking to you, I have to put on my shoes, put on my coat, put on my hat, and engage in a long argument with 10 pounds of lint, who just happens to have one of the strongest personalities of anybody I know, human or otherwise. So pray for Mojo. I must go try to get Frida to go outside. Oh, God. But I'll be back if I survive. Thank you, Boy, too.